Okay, so today we're going to go over the different kinds of handles that you can get on copper cookware. This is something that I've gotten asked questions about in the past, so I thought I'd address it and give ways to show what kind of handles you may have on your copper cookware. Just a quick list: they could be copper, they could be cast brass, they could be cast copper, though it's most likely not cast. They can be on hand hammered brass. They can be cast iron and or ductile or cast steel. That's all of those cast iron things. Or they can be wrought iron. They all have different characteristics, and they all require slightly different care. So I'm going to go over and show what each one is and how to maintain or even clean them if they have rust and things like that. So we'll go over it real quick, and I'll list it down below too, just in case it's just a quick info you want to grab, and we'll go from there.
Okay, these handles are cast brass. So, not to be, people will say bronze as well, but they're cast brass. They're a little bit yellower. And the way you can tell is the uniformity of the shape. There's usually only smoothness involved. And this is the crazy thing. So it's still soft. It's still a relatively soft metal. So wear and tear is going to show up just like it would on copper, just a little less quickly. So like here, these are all wear and tear damages from either getting dropped or getting shoved on a stove. It doesn't mean they were handmade. It just means that they are showing wear and tear. But these were cast brass. All right, moving on. This is copper. And a lot of times you will see, this kind of a heart shape. And copper handles will or should always be attached to the copper pot with copper rivets. If you notice and this is because this one's lined with stainless actually, but sometimes you see stainless rivets. But these are always usually copper, especially because copper handles tend to show that these are old, possibly even before you could have cast iron handles, before they were readily available. These are hand formed, and a great way to know that is you see all of this kind of like wrinkling in the copper and how uneven this is. It's not exact here. It's all different. This was hand formed from a thick piece of copper, or even folded into itself. Over here we have cast iron. These are actually ductile iron. And you can tell because they look like cast iron. Okay, this handle may be cast brass, but it also could be hand formed from a big, like a basically slab of brass or a tube, because of how incredibly handmade the handle looks and the unevenness of it, as well as some of the more hand forged type finishing. I would put more money on this not being necessarily a cast piece, but something that was hand crafted. Here are some more copper handles. You can see these were also handmade, mostly by the fact that, for instance, they're not the same shape. This has all been hand cut from a thicker piece. And there's some hand forming, over on this side here, even how it's cut. These are also copper handles. Care for these is no different than care for the exterior of your copper pots. So when you are cleaning the exterior, you would use the same polish for copper handles as you do for brass handles. So using that type of finish. This is a cast handle. The best way to clean cast handles is actually to use, depending on the amount of rust, and you don't want to damage the copper itself. We do a vinegar wash, and I will show you that next once I show you the last kind of copper handle. And that is, and you guys have seen this before, but I'm going to show you again. That is, these are copper, but this is wrought iron. versus cast iron. So you can see the shaping here. This is made from a bar, and it actually was, if you can see, it was actually connected here to this piece of iron, but this was all hand formed and hand forged. And another, you know, here, this whole bale was made by a blacksmith. You know, the ears here, all of this, anytime it's sort of, you know, this handcrafted look, that's a great tip off that, and it's usually a thinner stock, that you're dealing with a wrought iron, so handmade by a blacksmith, versus cast iron. You will treat anything wrought iron or cast iron the same for cleaning, and I'm going to show you that process next.
Okay, the next thing I'm going to quick show you with handles and handle care is if you have cast iron, wrought iron, cast steel, ductile iron for your handles, how you can clean them if you have rust on them, because unfortunately we can't treat them like we would a cast iron skillet. You'd wreck your copper, melt the tin out to season your handles. So if you have handles with rust, this is what I do. I use vinegar and water and a wire brush, and I get them nice and dry, and then when they're super dry, I rub in flaxseed oil and just let that sit in there to keep additional moisture out. So I'm just going to do a quick how I do it. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but then I'll show you the finished one when it's dried and oiled. Here we go. Okay, so just like cheap vinegar from Walmart that you spend, you know, $1 on. So here's one of my lids that I forgot to put in sawdust after I was washing and cleaning. So as you can see here, there's a lot of rust. And the thing about vinegar is it doesn't wreck your copper. It doesn't wreck your tin lining either. And I just got these brushes from a hardware store is fine. You can get them on Amazon. You can usually get them in packs of anywhere from 3 to 6 or whatever. But what you're doing is the vinegar actually is eating through the iron oxide and removing it so that it doesn't come back as easily. This is really splattery. So put it in a place, like I have it in the sink that I'm rubbing, and it's splashing all over. So I'm trying to keep it off of my off of the phone. But rinse it off, and then you might be able to see, but a lot of the rust has already come off, and now it's starting to look like an iron handle. And I use the small brush so I can get into the small cracks and everything like that. But then once it's dry, you won't have to deal with the same rust issues. So it's pretty easy, and it works for even older pieces. And sometimes you can get your the lighter colored iron to show through. It'll darken with time, hand oil, regular oil, heat. But all right, I'll finish this up and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's oiled.